Hey everybody, so welcome to Rocky's Recap. Every week I'm going to be recapping the week in football for this season. So mostly the NFL, a little bit of college. This week I'm going to focus more on week one of NFL. So what did we learn from each game in week one? Starting with the beginning, Atlanta versus the Eagles. For me personally, I think that I really from that game just took that Philadelphia is still a very strong Super Bowl contending team. Defense is still solid. Atlanta, at this point, I'm just not thinking long term is going to be solid. They've got a lot of injuries coming up. So, I don't know. Also, from that game, I thought it was pretty interesting that last play with the missed catch from Julio was similar to last year's divisional round game and how that ended. He did not catch it. The only difference really was coverage. Last year, I think it was Mills. This year, I think it was Darby. So that was kind of funny to watch, kind of like deja vu. Other than that, not much to really say. I mean, like I said, Philly's D still solid. I think they held Atlanta or stopped Atlanta on the one like three times. Like, so that's pretty powerful to be able to stop, you know, offenses in the end zone, especially in the one. Like that's pretty big deal. So kudos to them. Next game is the Ravens in Buffalo, which I'm not sure who to give credit here to because Ravens blew them out, but Buffalo is poo. Like, absolute shit show. Peterson is not the answer. They definitely need to put Allen in and hope that something will spark with that. But other than that, there's definitely a serious struggle going on in Buffalo. As far as the Ravens are concerned, you never know with Flacco. I feel like he's flaky Flacco, like he can be good and bad. But it was cool to see him connect with his three new receivers in Brown, Crabtree, and Snead. So, that's good. He's spreading it out and connecting with his new receivers. But other than that, you can never discount the solid defense from the Ravens. They'll always be present and make their presence known. So we'll see how that pans out going forward. But that's really it for them. Buffalo, figure something out. The Jags and the Giants. What a game. It could have went really honestly either way. I think they both played good games technically. I mean, we already know Jaguars defense is solid. They continue to show that. As a whole, I think they had like 2 sacks, 6 pressures on the quarterback, 8 tackles for losses, and an interception. And Miles Jack, for me, stands out the most. He had, I think, like, obviously the pick six, 10 tackles himself, and a pass deflection. So, real big game for him. He's a beast. And then he's got people like Telvin Smith and Jalen Ramsey on his side. So that's always going to be a defensive squad coming at you. So with that being said, you can't discount what the Giants were able to still do against a good Jags defense. So OBJ back from an injury, looking good. He did 11 receptions for 111 yards. Saquon Barkley's debut, I think he did pretty good and showed that, he's going to be a very versatile player, which we kind of already knew, and he just continues to show that. I think he had a good amount of, touches on receiving and rushing, so that was good to see. That'll be interesting to see how that pans out throughout the season. Houston and New England. So really nothing new to learn there. We already know Tom Brady and Gronk connection's always going to be on point, and it was. And also Houston, I'm just not really super impressed with their performance. Happy to see Deshaun Watson back, but not really so impressed with his performance. I'm hoping that was just kind of like a fluke on his part, and he'll be able to bounce back and do well because I do think that Houston has a decent squad and is capable of doing good things. 49ers and the Vikings. The first thing that comes to mind, I'm thinking is like Garoppolo is possibly overpaid. I don't know, you just can't get paid that much and get 3 interceptions in the season opener game. Like that's just not acceptable. As well as the Vikings, you can't just take it away from them because their defense is super solid. And they had the addition of Mike Hughes as a rookie. He debuted greatly, had a pick six, huge pick six, and that's pretty much it. Vikings are still coming with that heat on defense. Miami versus Tennessee, I thought that was pretty interesting. It's the longest game in history since like 1970. It's like 7 hours and 10 minutes. I think that was pretty cool to see them persevere through that because, it's easy to in a rainful game, like to get injuries, like we saw happen with the other team in Tennessee. And prayers up to Delanie Walker and everybody else who was injured, and anybody who was injured in week one. I feel like there was quite a few. Prayers up to them. But Miami still pushed through, and it was nice to see Tannehill back from injury and doing well, connecting with Stills. Always fun to see Frank Gore, still pushing strong, choo choo train. And also the defense on Miami. Like Rashad Jones had 2 picks, and Kiki Alonso had one, I think. So it was just an overall pretty good, solid performance from Miami, even with all the different, you know, delays and everything. It's easy to get kind of like lose your mojo and get cold, and you're not keeping up warm and all that good stuff. So that's what I got from that. The Bengals and the Colts. So happy to see Luck back after 2 years off. I don't think he did so bad considering a new offensive scheme, and he just couldn't get the job done. But Bengals are offenses clicking and doing good. You can't. I can't really say. I think both teams will do pretty decent as it unfolds. Next, Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Oh my gosh. So Cleveland finally doesn't lose, but they don't win. That's so crazy. Like, happy for them, but I think it's going to be a season where they will get wins. They definitely looked good, in my opinion. I would like to personally see Mayfield in there at some point, but, if they want to stick with Tyrod Taylor, that's their business. But it would be an interesting mix to see him put in there. It was just an overall sloppy game, honestly. Roethlisberger, there's just no excuse. You can't turn over the ball that many times. And they're lucky they came back to still, contend to win, because they had like 5 turnovers. Cleveland should have capitalized on those turnovers, but they didn't. Maybe they need to learn how to do that. Other than that, we have to give credit to Denzel Ward, new rookie coming in. He debuted with 2 picks. I think he's like the youngest rookie to do so, or youngest player, period, not even rookie, to get two picks in a game. So that's pretty impressive. I think that they have a good bunch going on in Cleveland, and once they figure it out, I think they'll do good this season. As far as Pittsburgh's concerned, I don't think that they will make it through the long term of the season without Le'Veon Bell. So I feel like they're kind of going through like an identity crisis. Like, yes, Connor's good, but nobody can replace Le'Veon Bell. Let's be honest. Like, the guy is amazing. He's elusive. Not only elusive, like he's powerful, like it's hard to guard him. So they'll definitely be missing him for sure if he doesn't come back. So next game, Chiefs and Chargers. Wow, what a game, right? Like Mahomes, I personally didn't know much about him before this debut. This was like a debut for me. And I am super impressed. I don't think this was like a first time fluke or whatever where he just did great. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback. I think he's super accurate, and he has velocity behind his throws. He extends plays. He's not playing around. And he has weapons all around him. He has Kareem Hunt, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill. Like, what else could you want, So it's a good situation for them. Tyreek Hill went off. He had 3 touchdowns, one from a punt return, and, the 2 receiving. He's just a freak. He's so fast. It's crazy. I love watching them. I think offensively they're going to be really exciting to watch and hard to defend, and it's just super exciting to watch, in my opinion. As far as the Chargers go, man, I don't know what to say there. I mean, basically Phillip Rivers, it's like he threw her 400 something yards or something and still couldn't get the job done. Like, that's a shame. But, at the end of the day, like, turnovers are huge. If you're going to create turnovers or cause turnovers or whatever, you can't expect to win, like, at the end of the day. So they had a really sloppy game. 2 of their turnovers costed 2 touchdowns. So they got to clean that up if they want to go anywheres. Next, Seattle and Denver. Von Miller is all I can say about that game. I mean, the guy is just phenomenal. We already knew that. It's nothing new. I think it was pretty impressive. I think he sacked Russell 3 times, forced 2 fumbles and recovered 1. Savage. I think it'll be really interesting to see him and Brad Chubb on the other end going crazy together. I think that'll be real interesting to look out for. Other than that, Seattle, I don't really know. I don't have much to say. I think they really just did a good job on Denver's part game planning to shake up Russell early so that he couldn't get going. And that's pretty much what happened. Dallas and Carolina, Lord. Still trouble in paradise in the Cowboy Nation, Cowgirl Nation at this point. I don't know if they're going to figure it out. Like, they have no receivers. So, with that being said, Ezekiel Elliott cannot do it all. And they're not even trying to let him do it all. I feel like they underutilized him in that game. Like, he's known for being, like, a dual threat, and like, not in a sense of, like, he runs the option well, the screen, stuff like that at Ohio State, and like that's what he's known for, is what he's good for, but they don't really use him in that sense. So it makes no sense to me why they threw more than they ran when they don't even have receivers. I don't know what's going on in Dallas, but they got to figure that out. Carolina, of course, Cam did his thing, managed to pull a win, and of course the defense, Luke Kuechly, savage. I think he had like 13 tackles, 6 sacks, and a strip sack. Just phenomenal performance. Washington and Arizona. I was super impressed with Washington, especially considering the quarterback and the whole running back situation. Quarterback was a new debut with Alex Smith, and then, of course, with Geis going out in the preseason, it was kind of questionable what they would do. They brought in Adrian Peterson, and he went off. And we never know what's going to happen because lately he's kind of just been fickle. Nobody's really using him, and when they do, he hasn't been super productive. He's jumping around on teams from team to team. And here I think he might have found a home, or maybe it's too early to say, I don't know. But I think it's a good fit because he has Thompson, who is also phenomenal. And I think the combination, like, it'll be good because Peterson won't have to take the brunt of the work, and because, he's getting older and whatever, but they can kind of, like, have that duo tandem, and I think it'll work out well for them. So that'll be interesting to see that they can survive without Geis and do pretty well. So Arizona, I don't know what to tell you. They don't really have any receivers besides Larry Fitzgerald. The offensive line is poo. Serious struggle going on over there. They need to figure something out. Chicago and Green Bay. Wow, what a game. Aaron Rodgers never ceases to amaze me. I've always had a hard time admitting it because I'm like a big Drew Brees fan, obviously being from New Orleans. So the whole GOAT talk and everything, I'm always very super defensive and more towards Brees and less towards anybody else, right? So, but there's just no denying this man. I mean, he comes back from an injury, rallies around from a 23 deficit, and pulls off the win on 1 foot. He did better on 1 foot than some of these quarterbacks did on 2 feet in a whole game. Like, it's just unbelievable. Him and Randall Cobb had that connection going, and it's always entertaining to watch. As far as Chicago goes, what stuck out for me was Khalil Mack, his debut there, traded from the Raiders. I think the Raiders and John Gruden are complete fools for letting him go. This is somebody who's going to be a mainstay and make people's lives hell. And that he did, and he had his presence known. Though it wasn't enough to win a game, he still did a lot. And him with Roquan Smith and everything, the Chicago defense is definitely solid. They just got to figure some things out on offense, I think. Let's see. Jets and the Lions. So I am super impressed with Sam Darnold's performance. Some people are like, oh, it's too early to say, but I think he's got it figured out. I know Lions were super crappy, and Stafford did horrible, 4 interceptions, but that doesn't mean that we can't take that away from the Jets. I think their defense is crazy solid. They're calling themselves New Jack City. I'm with you. I'm riding that wave. Y'all are doing amazing. I think y'all will continue to do amazing. There was 2 interceptions from D. Lee. I think 1 for a touchdown. There was 1 from Jamal Adams. LSU, baby. And another one from LSU. Make Mo Claiborne. What's up? Interception. And another one, I think it was, Tremaine Johnson. So another new acquisition. So kudos to the Jets and their defense. And, of course, the offense. They're clicking. They're doing great as a whole. I'm loving it. Good for them. I think they even set like some franchise records and some cool stuff going on there. As far as the Lions are concerned, I don't know what to say. That was a horrible performance on all sides of the field. They got to figure something out. Rams and the Raiders. Of course, the Rams are just proving themselves to be, one of those top teams to look out for. And Gurley's still doing his thing. Carr to Jay Cook was kind of impressive, but 3 interceptions is just not acceptable. Marcus Peters made his debut with his new team and with the Rams and got a pick six and celebrated with the Marshawn Lynch thing. So that was kind of entertaining. Other than that, I would say Oakland's missing K-Mac, major, and they need to figure a lot of other things out, obviously, too. So that's pretty much it as far as wrapping up like my take on every game and what kind of stood out for me. I'm kind of going to go into a couple other things as far as just like what surprised us, most impressive individual performances, team performances, positionally, etc. So what surprised me the most, I think, and a lot of people, because it was a game that was much talked about, and not just because I'm a Saints fan, but I'm going to go into it, is the Saints Tampa Bay game. On both sides, we're surprised, A, that Ryan Fitzpatrick was capable of pulling that kind of a performance off at this stage in the game for him at this point of his career. I don't think anybody thought he was going to come in and replace Winston and be able to do that. He had an amazing performance connecting with Deshaun Jackson like crazy and Mike Evans. It was super, and even on the defensive side, they did really great. As far as the Saints are concerned, of course, Drew Brees always does his thing. Him and Michael Thomas had records set. Alvin Kamara trying to, take the brunt of the work considering we are out from Mark Ingram. We try to get Mike Gillily for what? I don't know. What a waste of time. Ball security issues. He's been known for that. So I don't even know why we bothered. I think Kamara is very capable of handling it until Ingram comes back, because not only does he not run the same style as Ingram where there's a lot of impact tackling, he's very elusive. He does the receiving thing really well. Like, he had more receiving yards than rushing yards. So I don't think it's as big of a deal for him to be the back until Ingram comes back, to relieve him a little bit. But anyways, the reason why this was so surprising is a lot of records were set on both sides of the ball. Saints defense was absent, no show. I don't even know, nobody, we might as well have not had bodies out there on defense. It was piss poor performance. I am utterly shocked, surprised, and confused still to this day. How did we go from defensive rookie of the year and our defense was finally clicking after all this time? That was always our weak point. And oh my God, Saints defense. But now it's what was that? A combined 88 points in a game set an NFL record for a season opener since 1947 because of how piss poor our defense was, basically. That's what it boils down to. So super surprising, and I'm not happy with it. Other than that, a lot of records were set. It was pretty interesting. Ryan Fitzpatrick obviously did an amazing game, record-setting game. He set a record since 1991, only quarterback to pass for at least 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and even rushed for a touchdown in a single game. He had a 97.1 QBR. Also, Drew Brees, even though we didn't pull off the win, still doing his thing, passed 3 touchdowns, giving him the 37th season opening game to surpass the previous record held by Peyton Manning. And he threw for 439 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions as well. He had a QBR of 93.4. So both did solid. It's just that our defense didn't show up. And at the end of the day, we all know defense wins games. You can't not stop somebody and expect to win, So I don't know what to say, honestly. I don't even think Tampa punted until the third quarter. I think they scored on 6 of 7 drives in the first half or whatever, and it's just, I can't even talk about it. So next subject, let's see here. So most impressive individual performances, I have Tyreek Hill. He's a freaking freak, I swear. Along with Mahomes, I think that was a pretty impressive performance. Khalil Mack in his debut, I think that was really impressive. Von Miller, as always. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Drew Brees, Michael Thomas as well set a record with 180 yards, franchise record, and I think also he set some kind of record. I think he's the opening, almost is the most yards by a player in an opening game in NFL history, breaking Keenan Allen's record, I think it was. So, him and Drew Brees had a nice little show, and then Aaron Rodgers, of course, was another great individual performance to come back like that. Most impressive team performances as a whole, I would say Tampa, offensively and defensively. The Jets, offensively and defensively. And surprisingly, the Dolphins. I mean, the Dolphins, like I said, quarterback's finally back and clicking with Stills. They rallied around through these weather delays to still win. The defense showed up, 3 picks total. Um, Pretty impressive. Baltimore, maybe, arguably, but again, they played the Bills, who suck, so who knows? I don't know. For me, it's Tampa Jets, Dolphins, I think, that were most impressive considering the situation. Ugliest performances, clearly the Bills. Let's go ahead and put Josh Allen in. Lions, I don't know what to say. Horrible debut by Matt Patricia. They need to figure something out there because that was not acceptable. They went from like contending to like looking like absolute poo. So hopefully they can figure that out. Obviously, the Cowboys, piss poor performance. They need to figure it out. They have no receivers. They have got to address that. Ezekiel Elliott cannot do it by himself. Arizona has no offensive line, barely any receivers besides Larry Fitzgerald. It's just something's needs to be done. Like, defense cannot only win the game. You know what I mean? You got to put points up. Most impressive rookie performances, I would say Sam Darnold, of course. He's the first quarterback to win by 31 points in the first season opener game since Tom Brady did it in 2001. So that's super impressive. Also, Saquon Barkley, of course. I think he did a pretty good job. He had like a total of 130 yards receiving and rushing. And he was against a really tough defense in the Jaguars. They're like the best in the AFC. So that's pretty impressive to still be able to do that. As well as Denzel Ward, who had 2 picks. I think he had like 6 tackles, and he's the 4th youngest player in history to have 2 interceptions in a game. So that's pretty cool to come out and already be setting records like that. As far as who made the biggest statement on their new team via like trades in the offseason and stuff, would be for me Khalil Mack. Like I said, going into Chicago and making his impact known right away. He had a sack, forced fumble, fumble recovery, interception for a touchdown. I think he just did absolutely phenomenal. I think he's the first to have a sack, forced fumble, fumble recovery, and an interception for a touchdown in one game since he last did it in 2016, and all in the first half. And he's the only to do that all in just the first half. So that's pretty cool. Also, who made a statement going to their new team, I think, was Tyrann Mathieu with the Houston Texans. Though they did not win, he did have a pick and a fumble recovery, and he's the first to reach that since 2012 in one game. Also, Marcus Peters, he got a pick 6 going with his new team. That's impressive. And as well as Adrian Peterson. I mean, he led the team in receiving and rushing. And at this stage in the game, like how his career has been going in the past few years, I thought that was a surprise and pretty impressive, making a debut to his new team, already making an impact and contributing. So that'll be interesting to watch. Let's see. Positionally speaking, for week 1, best defensive backs, I'm going to go with probably like Denzel Ward and Matthew, because I thought that was pretty impressive and he set a record there. Best quarterbacks, there was kind of several quarterbacks that kind of stood out. Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Fitzpatrick, Mahomes. Receiving wise, probably Juju had a great game along with AB on the other side. OBJ had a good game coming back off injury. Randall Cobb had a great game with Aaron Rodgers. And obviously, like I said earlier, Tyreek Hill. What else? Best linebackers. There was actually several linebackers that stood out to me in week 1, with Miles Jack being one of them. Quan Alexander for Tampa Bay. He was all over the ball, everywhere, every play. He's been doing that since LSU. Anyways, Luke Kuechly for Carolina, obviously making his impact. Khalil Mack, we already addressed him. And JJ Watt. He like 4 sacks, blocked field goal, and overtime, to keep that game from them from winning. So that was pretty impressive. As far as best defensive end, nobody really stuck out to me except for Von Miller, so he's just going to take that cake by himself. Best running backs in week 1, even though the Chargers lost, Melvin Gordon had a total of 166 yards, both receiving and rushing, and I thought that was pretty impressive for his position. Obviously, it was nice to see James Conner do pretty well as well in the absence of Le'Veon Bell. Adrian Peterson, Todd Gurley, of course. Best special teams, hello, Tyreek Hill, Grant with Miami. They had 2 record-setting returns for touchdowns. I think Grant's was like 102 yards for a touchdown, and I think Hill's was like 91. So that was really impressive. And that's pretty much it. Week 1, I think for me personally, the teams to really look out for are the Rams, Kansas City, Saints, even though we had a loss. I'm just being biased. And if Tampa continues how they were doing, watch out for them too. As well as, let's see here. I mean, you always got to look out for Green Bay and, of course, New England. I hate to admit it, but I'm most interested in seeing like certain teams like Washington. That was impressive. Will it continue? Or, New York Jets. That was super impressive. Will it continue? So it'll be really interesting, and we will see shortly as the weekend approaches us. And y'all will hear from me next week in Rocky's recap to recap how week 2 went in the NFL. Thank you for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts.